All right, well, thank you for coming. Today we're going to talk about cloud strategies, specifically for ArcGIS Enterprise. It says Wendy Peliquin on your program. She's over here. I work with Wendy. My name's Laura Wilson. We work for GIS Inc., and we are a Azure Platinum partner and CityWorks partner. And we do a lot of upgrades. And so we wanted to just kind of bring some of those lessons learned to you guys today. And share some of the cloud thinking and cloud strategies. So let's get started. This was kind of a tough presentation, I think, to put together for this crew, because I think there's people out there that might still not really understand what they can do in the cloud. And then I've talked to some people who are like, yeah, we're ready to do it. How much is it going to cost? So I'm going to try to bridge the gap, and then we'll do questions at the end. So thinking through, like, what is it? Why would you do it? What are the benefits? Talk about some samples, some examples from our clients, and then focusing back on that return on investment, right? Because there's got to be a reason to want to make this change, and we can talk about some of the impacts to your other systems as well. Focusing on the enterprise, right? For ArcGIS. So, what is the cloud? It's been out there for like 10 years. You know, if you talk to my mom or you talk to my son or you talk to somebody else, they have different perceptions on what it is. So we'll talk about what it is for GIS today. How has it changed? And what are those maybe misconceptions? So maybe bust some myths if we can. Key takeaway, right? Here's your single point of failure. You have to have internet access. You have to, right? ArcGIS Online is a cloud. You have to have internet access to access it. It's very flexible. You can get to it from anywhere as long as you have internet access, right? So that is the number one thing to think about when you're going to the cloud. And a lot of people will say that that's the deal breaker for them. But if you think about it, you know, we'll go through some examples of even when power's out and you have a generator and a MiFi, you can be managing things from your phone. So there are some real advantages, and maybe this won't be such a big deal. Again, just perceptions. Instagram, ArcGIS Online is in the cloud. If you ask my kids, it's Fortnite and Minecraft. But where is that, right? So we know Amazon, we know Azure. There's also private clouds out there. You know, we worked on a project using a company called DataPipe, and they had special certifications for Fed compliant security. So there's private companies as well, and just know that you do have choices, and you can look at those options as you consider your cloud. So why do we have a rain cloud, right? The cloud is like a rain cloud. If you drive into it, there's millions of raindrops, right? And what does that mean? That's millions of servers. There are servers. They are sitting in a building somewhere, or multiple buildings in different parts of the country and the world. And it's not just magic, right? There are servers, and this is one of the coolest things about the cloud is you don't have to do this. You don't have to manage this infrastructure. You don't have to try to secure it. You don't have barbed wire. You're not trying to keep it clean and cool. So just know that it isn't magic, and there are things behind that. So what does this mean for you guys? We'll talk a little bit about ArcGIS Online. So who's finally adopted ArcGIS Online, doing stuff with it? You've got your org account. All right, well, you're using the cloud, right? So if you wanted to put your own data, your own portal, as the previous session went through, you're standing up your own AGO, you can do that in Azure. You can do that in Amazon Web Services or a private cloud as well. A lot of folks are using virtual machines now, and that's simply you're moving off your own virtual machines and you're moving into cloud instances of those machines, right? And there's some really nice cost benefits to doing that. So I'm jumping ahead. So it's a network of secure servers. You may never see them physically. You won't ever see them physically. They can be in multiple places. They can have geographic redundancy. They're going to store your data. They're going to serve up ArcGIS Enterprise software, right? We're going to install that on the cloud servers. And then with that, you can get all of Esri's goodies, right? The solutions, the templates, the dashboards. So again, accessible over the internet. This seems to be less of a deal breaker now as we move forward. Folks are becoming web service enabled, fewer direct connections to databases, more use of feature services, right? We're seeing that with Pro. right? As you work with your data in Pro or the utility network coming out, you are going to be using services, feature service level integrations versus database level integrations. So the internet is going to become part of your world, and the cloud does require that. But so why don't people go to the cloud? A coworker brought this to us, but Brian David Johnson, his name's like way down here in the corner. He's a futurist at Intel. And there's actually been studies about adoption of technology, right? What prevents people? What is that adoption path? And usually it's no way, it's going to kill us all, right? That's the first mindset. And then you started, trying to make sense of it, like how would this affect me, and it's going to ruin my data, or I'm never going to get my data back, or it's going to steal my daughter. Denial of its usefulness, like, well, maybe for somebody else, right? I'll never use it. We don't need it. We're fine. We've got our physical server sitting back there, and Joe's maintaining it, right? And then finally, acceptance. So I feel like we've seen this with our clients over the last, 5 to 7 years. Really the last couple, they're asking about it. They want to know more. They're implementing it. They might pilot something in it. And we're seeing that adoption rate go up. So I think we probably did 50 upgrades last year as a company. And we're seeing more people want to say, I want to put this in my 5-year plan. I want to put an approach. I want to make that plan, make this part of my strategic plan, because they see the benefits, the cost effectiveness, and the security as well. So. A couple other bullets there, but thinking about putting this in your roadmap, what are the advantages? We hear the buzzwords, big data, AI, virtual reality, Internet of Things. And so if all of these other things are going to be dependent on the internet, this is where you're going to scale and have the flexibility to scale, to adopt some of these new technologies. So it's definitely worth not being afraid of, at least. Finding more about. So why use the cloud? Flexibility, for sure, is one of the best reasons. Server capacity. So hurricane example. You've got all your stuff on premise. You're serving up some cool flood data. I see Colleen in the audience here. All of a sudden, 9 News or whatever picks up your site, and they're telling everybody to go look at the current conditions and floodplain mapping. Well, your load just spiked, right? To go from a couple 100,000 hits to a couple million hits in a couple hours can take down a server, right? So thinking about how these things can auto scale on demand and have that plan in place, the cloud can definitely do that a lot easier than having somebody in a back room adding RAM during a storm, right? So disaster recovery, right? So a little screenshot there of I think this is Amazon's global infrastructure. So a lot of folks are using the cloud, maybe not as their production environment, but you might want to use it for your disaster recovery. So you could have your on-premise stuff here, North Carolina, right? But you could have your disaster recovery in Arizona, and have it there ready to go, turned off, so you're not paying for it, right? It's provisioned, but it's off. And then when you need to spin it up in the event of a disaster, you can use a different geographic region. Automatic updates, definitely a benefit, but the big one is how much is it going to cost, right? Does this actually save you any money? I was talking with somebody, and it depends on your organization, right? What are your servers? What's your need? Do you have 42 servers, or do you have 4? How often do you use them? Can you shut them down at night? Because you can start to save things by scheduling off time, right? You're going to pay an upfront cost and a monthly fee, but then you can reduce, what you have control of is that hourly cost. So we'll talk about some of these. Pay as you go, right? You can start small, scale up, and add resources as you need to. The flexibility, again, of just being able to pick up your phone and check the server status, to monitor it from any device, anywhere. Collaboration, work from anywhere. Free of infrastructure, right? So no more fans in the server room. How many people have fans in their server room? I've definitely worked at many companies where that literally is what it looked like, maybe not the cat. But yeah, so freeing yourself of that physical infrastructure can save you guys time. It can save your IT costs. You can just put that time where it can be better used. But lastly, security, and these slides will be out there. There's a link to the Amazon or maybe the Azure security white paper. And I just pulled down the table of contents, a couple pages of it. It's 93 pages. They have thought through security. They are experts. This is what they do. Amazon keeps its own purchasing information in the cloud. No one in this room is going to replicate this at a local government level, right? You're not going to have barbed wire and great servers and physical barriers and keeping it clean and experts thinking through all these backup plans and cybersecurity experts on staff. It's too expensive, right? This is the biggest benefit. You're getting that expertise. It comes with the platform. When you pay that monthly cost, they're monitoring it. They're checking for ransomware attacks. So security, in my mind, is one of the biggest benefits. And I think we just went through these, so I'll skip ahead. But the auditing as well, having someone else come in and take an audit of your servers, do the security checks, that's part of what you're paying for. So keep that in mind. All right, so let's talk about ArcGIS Enterprise. I'm going to go through the base components. I think most people in the room are pretty familiar with them. But as a refresher, it's not just one server anymore, or typically it's not just one server anymore. You are going to have your ArcGIS server, but you will also have a web adapter, probably. You're going to have a portal server. You're going to have a data store, and if you don't know what that is, it is a really efficient place that Enterprise is going to serve up data for you. So in ArcGIS Online, if you drag a spreadsheet in there, it goes in the data store, right? Really efficient data serving. And we're going to put Geo Event Server up there. There's been a couple presentations today. This will probably become, or should we consider it part of the base enterprise? This is going to be your IoT, your AVL integration, your Waze feeds. It can automate into CityWorks, right? So this is going to be your kind of your hub or your listener, your workhorse. So, all right, how would you put these in the cloud? I'm going to look at some notes. So I had an architect help me put this together. So forgive me if I mess up the acronyms. I don't think I will, but one of the things we want to look at is when you deploy, you are going to get layers of security, right? So we'll put those on. There's almost 6-7 layers of security. So the first thing is you're going to establish that region, and you're going to have a gateway at that region, and then you start to define your Route 53, and that's going to manage your domain name, right? So mycity.gis.com, right? So this is your first piece that you're going to set up, and you establish that region, and then within it, your second layer of security is going to be your virtual private cloud. And you're going to put that in an availability zone, right? So that's like in Raleigh or in Phoenix, right? And you're going to pick that availability zone. Third layer of security, we're limiting things to port 433, right? So it's not just open to the world. You're getting in, and then we have an elastic load balancer there to manage that. And then we're going to get into a public subnet. So like think of this as now you're in your DMZ, and you will have a NAT, a network address translator. And this is where your web adapter is typically going to go. All right, so we haven't even gotten to our data yet. We're not even at our servers yet, and you're already 4 layers of security in. So then you get a private subnet. Again, this would be like if you were through your firewall. And this is where the actual components are going to go for portal, your DBMS, your Geo Event Server. And we do have a Bastion server in here. Think about that as how you're going to remote in to get to your servers securely, right? Because you need to manage those. You need to go read the ArcGIS server logs and do some things, probably get to your database, do some tuning, that kind of thing. So how much does that cost? This is an example from a client, and it's way too small probably for everybody to read. But we've got all the different server components, right? Because you're going to price them out and get a cost for those individually. And I have to lean down to see this. But we're giving it pretty good RAM, 8 gigabytes on the web adapter and portal, 16 on the server and database, GeoEvent, decent storage, pretty much a best practice little implementation there. And it says $1,500 a month. So that can go down. If you buy more reserve time, 3 years, right? Ahead of time, and this is where someone was asking how much does it cost. It totally depends on how long you're going to commit to. That's going to bring your costs way down. And then you can start looking at uptime. Obviously, these would probably be up more often than not. But if you wanted to shut them down on a scheduled task, you can. Okay, so that's just a basic production environment. What about disaster recovery or high availability? One of the neatest things about the cloud is you can take those same servers, and I'm sure you could do this with virtual machines as well, but it's really easy in the cloud to copy like an image of your configuration. So it's not just the image with server installed, it is your geocoding service with street map on the machine where it's supposed to be in your geocoding service configuration. You can clone that, and then you can set up a second environment. So do you need high availability where there's truly load balancing? That is like a whole different topic, but let's talk about disaster recovery. You could set up a cloned environment in a different availability zone, right? Across the country, somewhere else. Have it cloned and sitting there turned off. You're not paying for it, it's turned off. But it is there when the disaster hits or when you want to flip a switch, or it's not just disaster recovery, when you're migrating. So let's say we did 10.6.1, 10.7's coming out, drink the Kool-Aid. It looks great, we want to do it. You can do it in your cloned environment, try it out, fire it up. Now you're going to pay for 2 environments for a little while, but once it's ready, that becomes your production. The other one can become your disaster recovery. So there's a lot of tools, and we're getting to tools that'll help you do that. So client example, Great Lakes Water Authority is one of our clients, and the cloud is actually their disaster recovery. So they have everything on premise, day to day, everything they're doing on premise. They put everything in the cloud for disaster recovery, and this is their actual little architecture diagram. And they do testing for upgrades as well out there. So another client example, a county that we work with, we took their on-premise environment, which was 2 ArcGIS servers, image server, it had GeoEvent, Enterprise Geodatabase, the Bastion, planned it out at a 3-year subscription. You're going to have a substantial upfront cost, but you would if you were buying like a virtual machine, Hyper-V, right? Did the monthly cost for them, got it down to $360 a month. That's a lot less than the $1,500 we looked at before, because they're committing to 3 years. And so estimated costs, savings is about $200,000. So again, look at the return on investment. Maybe this isn't a fit for everybody, but it's definitely worth looking at. So how do you do that? How do you figure out how much this costs? There's some tools out there to help you build the servers. ArcGIS has an enterprise builder. We've had mixed success with that. I would try it on a dev machine first. Amazon has some different images. There's Cloud Builder for Amazon as well. Azure has a Cloud Builder. We have had mixed success with that. I would say do it on a dev server and see how it works for you. Chef scripting is becoming more popular, and that's basically they call it Chef, of making recipes. And that is your cookbook for your environment configuration. So again, not just the software installs, but where's StreetMap Premium, where's your geocoding service, or your data, things like that. So the calculators are really where it's at. This is how you're going to figure out how much does every server cost per month at my RAM and my storage. And I'm not going to pull up the internet, but I've got some screenshots here, and the link is there to one of them. But you can just Google Azure calculator. And the key with these is you have to know what your deployment plan looks like before you can really get anything out of the calculator. Do you need 1 ArcGIS server or 2? What's your load? What's your capacity? So you're still going to have to do the planning exercise. And there's some great tools for capacity planning, looking at your load. But I think that in this calculator link, there's a example already configured you can click on. So do the pricing calculators, play with the upfront costs. So scaling on demand, Azure, I just ran into this with a client and had to throw this in here. There's some really cool tools that will basically auto scale on demand, and you configure rules. So when my CPU gets to 80%, auto scale, and there's your application is basically going to be distributed across multiple instances. You won't even know that that's happening. It's really good for unfederated servers. So in this case, it was a routing server that was just getting pummeled, and it got pummeled at different times of the day. Internal client, And they wanted it to just scale itself up and down so that people weren't waiting. Some of the routing requests took, 15 seconds to run, and they just couldn't have people waiting, that long to get their updated route. So scale sets are a great thing to research if you have variable load. And there's some links there. Some slides on virtual machines versus scale sets. Again, I think the really key takeaway here is that it's automated scaling. No one's touching it. It's the consistent installation and configuration. So, with virtual machine, you're still going to have to go manually do some things. This does it for you. So, all right, where does my desktop go? Right, we've been talking about the enterprise servers and everything. Where should the desktop go? What about your enterprise database? And again, I think this is varies by organization. You can put it all in the cloud. You can put your desktop in the cloud. You can you create workspaces up there. And what's really neat is then you could really walk around with Chromebook and get up in there, and you can get on Pro, and the fancy graphics card is now up in your workspace. So you don't have to buy laptops and desktops that have those specs. It's great if you have people that are infrequent users. I just need Pro once a week. 3 or 4 of us do that. Put that up there, turn it off when no one's using it, and then have them log in. So here's a story, a small city. Their entire platform was in the cloud, desktop too. All the cities and counties around them had on-premise or a mix, but mostly on-premise. Tornadoes knock out the whole area, right? She had a generator, and she had MiFi, and she had a laptop, and was able to get in and be the one serving up the GIS for the emergency. So that's like an extreme case, but it's kind of cool. I did leave this, I had one of our engineers do a little assessment on desktops up in the cloud. Again, you're going to pay an upfront cost, so say $22 a month for the workspace, and then you're going to have an hourly rate. And that is where you're going to save your money. So let's say we had 184 hours in the month, and we were going to pay $1.75 per hour. All of a sudden, we're at a monthly cost of $344. And you're like, well, that's not worth it. But what if you only had 168 hours of on time during the month? You can drop that cost. And then really, where it makes the most sense, the sweet spot is those variable uses, right? So somebody doesn't need that on all day, every day. Schedule it for them, or have the user be able to turn it on and use it for the 2 hours that they need it, right? So I think this is where the return on investment is. So 2 options, right? 1, throw it all in the cloud. We just talked about option 2. Option 1, what if you have to keep it on premise? What if you have other systems integrating directly with your database? Think about changing that. But you can keep it on premise. A lot of folks do this. It's similar to what you would do with ArcGIS Online, right? You're going to have some replication. How often does the data need to get updated in your cloud or in AGO? Similar. You can do database to database. You can do Python replication. There's so many tools out there. One thing that you do have here is if you're going to keep your database down and you have Oracle or SQL Server, say, let's do that, you're paying for licenses. In the cloud, you could go hosted. There's a link here. Azure has a great white paper. Somebody asked earlier, what are the benefits? It compares using data store to using your enterprise geodatabase, and there's pros and cons. It's got great performance, especially for things like parcels and contours, data sets that don't get updated a lot. Great for this. And then you just need to think about the transactional data sets. So talk a little bit about managed services. We've given you a lot of information. The slide, the presentation before us, he struggled with Portal, right? He did, and there's lots of lessons learned there. There's a lot going on. So do you want to invest that time in your organization? How much do you really want to do, right? So managed services, I think of as like Instacart, right? I can go to the store. I don't like to, and I would much rather be working or working out or with my kids and just have my groceries show up, right? Or maybe I can't go to the store. My mom doesn't drive. This has saved me because I don't have to go get her groceries every day as she updates her list, right? So what do you want to take on? Managed services can be your help. It can be the installation. It can be, the maintenance every month, the backups, the recoveries. It can just be the whole experience. But there can be a lot of time savings, and you're relying on expertise. You're not wasting your time mucking around with SSL certs. You can rely on the experts. So when you hear the term managed services, just think of it as that's what it is. It can be the hosting side, right? Let's get it stood up for you. We're going to set up the scale sets. We're going to figure out the backup and recovery and the high availability and the cost estimation, and then do the deployment for you, right? And then you guys take it over. Or you could have somebody, doing the backups and maintenance for you, looking at it every month, doing the monitoring, the patches, Azure patches, right? You can take that off your plate with managed services. Now that's going to come at a cost. So again, coming back to the return on investment, what's your staff time worth? Where is your return on investment? Do you want to be concerned about security, or do you want to lean on the experts, right? Do you want the convenience of it and the reliability of offloading this into the cloud? So thank you. That's all I have. I'll take questions. I don't know how we are on time, but.
Slide you had to call. That was just the Azure and call, right? Not the managed service call.
Right, and I think the managed service cost is going to depend on who you're working with for that. So a lot of them will maybe do a one-time for the deployment and the architecture and that piece, and then you may just say, like, you know what, it's 2 hours a month. I think it can be really flexible. But yeah, if you want to do the managed services, you would need to factor in, like, there is additional cost for patches, maintenance, checking on it, making sure it's up and running, clean. So. Yeah. So we've got folks in the cloud right now. So Great Lakes Water Authority, I think they've upgraded this year. You have to upgrade it just like your other environment. The nice piece about that disaster recovery is you could, like, 10.7 is going to be a big leap, right? A lot of changes, big .0 release. Trying it in that environment that isn't your production environment. You could even do that if you're not using the cloud for production. You could stand up a pilot of 10.7, pay for it for a month, try it out, see if it's going to be worth upgrading the entire system. So that would be one use case we would suggest, or, try a dev server. So the cloud is great for playing around because you're not committing, right? You're just like playing around with servers and figuring it out, trying it out. And then if you're not ready for 10.7 or you find that it's not going to support your workflow or your custom applications, you haven't lost as much, right, as if you upgraded your whole production. So did that answer your question? Okay.
Between Azure and AWS, which is the cheapest, and in terms of scalability and reliability?
That's a great question. We have clients doing both. I feel like they are doing one or the other for whatever other reasons are driving their IT and infrastructure. Azure clients seem to have already invested in that, and they may be doing stuff with SharePoint and Office 365, and they're already all Microsoft. Amazon can definitely compete. So pricing wise, I don't know if I can answer that question correctly, but I think they're both great options. And maybe that's an organizational decision, if you've got other people going one way or the other. It should be part of your steering committee, probably your governance roadmap. Yeah. That would be a great presentation, though, like chocolate or vanilla, Amazon or Azure. Not on my projects. I don't think we have any clients doing it, but that would be an interesting one to look at. It's probably got all the same benefits, right? Looking at all the different things, and it's Google, so they're going to have the security and the reliability, and it could be a cost option or just a workflow decision at that point. So, who's in the cloud? Anybody? A couple people? Okay, Azure or Amazon? Azure, raise your hands. A couple Azures. All right, well, it's always fun. Again, there's my email, LauraWilson@GISync. I'm in Raleigh. Would love to meet up and hopefully do some more of these at the ArcGIS user group in September. So thank you.